You know what really kind of weirds me out about how sensationalized stories are when it comes to Hollywood and the entertainment business? You have the case of Ike and Tina Turner, where it was sensationalized for viewers in the 90s for the movie What's Love Got to Do with It, starring Angela Bassett and Lawrence Fishburne. They did a great job in the acting. I take nothing away from the acting and everything, but as the years have gone on, we've learned from people who are around them some conflicting stories based upon the Hollywood script that was produced and the reality of Ike and Tina's inner relationship. So interpersonal relationships, rather, what I'm really trying to say. But according to certain people, Ike was not the character that Lawrence Fishburne played, and Tina was definitely not the character that Angela Bassett played. We have a dynamic when it comes to Hollywood, and especially in the slanting that Hollywood usually does when it comes to African American personalities. It seems like they try to take the story, sensationalize it, marginalize the people involved, and make them a character that basically continues a narrative of some type of stereotype. And unfortunately, when you have the racist dynamic in the country, we've seen how they treated African Americans in film history, which is not really a good indication of a good track record, so to speak, of black imagery. It's very seldom that you're going to see a respectable role when it comes to real life personalities that they turn into like a biopic. There's always going to be some type of a flawed nature within the character that they try to portray as, instead of just being real about it. And I understand when it comes to Hollywood, they have to sensationalize certain things and make a quote unquote story out of it to be palatable for viewing audiences. At least that's what they tell you. But I think sometimes people can just handle the truth for what it is. I think the problem is there's too much trickery when it comes to filmmaking. They try to steer the audience into an ideology based on the writers and the studio heads' point of view of what should be done. I really want someone to try to, if it's possible at this point, to either get people who's still around, still alive from that time frame, if they can get stock footage from, they had, to my understanding, Ike had money, and you know, he had probably had film or something. Maybe his family has film. Maybe it needs to be, restored or something like that. But I would like to hear more of the side of Ike Turner's uh, relatives and friends and people around him, like in the documentary, to tell his side of the story, to kind of dispel the myth of the movie What's Love Got to Do with It. Because let's just be clear, um, there's been a wave of movement since the '90s, really started in the '80s, to my recollection, with the Oprah shows, and the '90s with certain black female authors who were used by people in this society who are in power when it comes to distribution and filmmaking, even television, um, where they wanted to paint black men in a certain way. And when this movie came out, it just kind of really further along what was done in the '80s when they released The Color Purple. If you look at the imagery of black men from the 1980s all the way through the early 2000s, it's been a terrible light. that was placed on black men, and being abusive physically, mentally, and sexually to black women. And in my lifetime, I saw it with the movie of The Color Purple, and that went to segue straight into the Oprah movement, and how her stock was blown up from the 80s, basically dogging out black men, not acknowledging the positive side of hip hop and her rise and ascension in America, and as well as the other filmmakers in Hollywood who continued this black male bashing, anti-black sentiments, black male sentiments, heterosexual black male sentiments to be more precise. They made, and then now in this day and age, you got something called toxic masculinity that's been used by the left, pushed through the black community by non-black owned media sources and dumped onto black men, continuing further the mental genocide of the image of black men. And it's getting tiresome to see that it's still going on in this generation. And there needs to be more stories of really more black male and female relationships. That's a good story that black people can take and see that it's a good example of what we should strive to be instead of the sensationalism that goes on in the entertainment industry. I really don't like how the portrayal of the black male and female relationship is done. And some people will say, well, that's just certain. Everything ain't roses, and sometimes it's like that for real. But at the same time, when you're talking about entertainment, why do you want to be entertained by negativity all the time? If that's a realistic thing where there's people who goes through trials and tribulations, there's problems in the relationships, this and that, why do you want to highlight the problem all the time? Why does it always has to be a toxic situation that you want to highlight to be entertained by? Why not be entertained by something positive, as something to set yourself as an example that you want to strive to? Um, let's take for instance this, so they've been popular over the past few years, especially since the pandemic with Will and Jada. Up until the pandemic, they were the ideal couple. That's a couple that you wanted to strive to because you see them in the public. After the pandemic, it got sensational and they started exposing things about their relationship that was unsettling. But I like the pre-pandemic ideal of the Smith family because even though there's always been some type of rumors circling around, they never let anything out that would negatively impact their relationship. And there was always, people saying you need to mind your business and whatever is going on, that it needs to be behind closed doors. But when they start airing out their own dirty laundry, it tainted the image of their relationship. And I think it's very important that you keep certain parts of the relationship private from the public, especially when you're a black couple in the United States. Um, but yes, people have problems. Everyday people have issues. They go through things. But when it comes to black male and female relationships in America, if you're going to distribute a work of art, it should be geared towards positivity. When I was a younger man, I really kind of scoffed at the ideal of what the Bill Cosby types were saying about, you know, respectability politics and how, we shouldn't be talking a certain way, saying certain words, or denigrating ourselves in certain roles. But now that I'm older, I realize that there's something to that because when you start thinking about your imagery as a people and how you're seen through the generations, like this whole dynamic of what's love got to do with this is everlasting. it's a brilliant piece of art. Even though I don't agree with certain things, like even like the Color Purple movie, I kind of detest that film in a certain way, but it's a great work of art because of the imagery of the black male in that movie is very detrimental and it lasts forever. That's the reason why when it comes to art, it's best to do it in a positive light because at least when you have a positive light, that'll stand the test of time instead of the negative aspect of it. Like Black Panther, that first Black Panther movie was a masterpiece in the black community, and that's something that we can be proud of as a work of art. They did something that Hollywood said wasn't able to be done, but they did it. I just think we just need to see more black male positivity in Hollywood. We have a lot of powerful black people in the entertainment industry now who talk a good game, but hopefully they're serious about cleaning up the image. I think Bill Cosby was on to something with the, you know, having black people, young black people in entertainment understand what they're doing and the industry and their imagery that affects all of us as a whole throughout time. And you can even see it with how I'll say that for another video. But that's my take on the Ike and Tina thing, the whole story, and about the black male image being drugged through the mud, and people just accepting it as that's what it is, and that's the problem with that. Forever, everyone thinks that Ike Turner is the devil, all because of one film or one book, really from one side of the story.